She saved the life of a man destined to become king. Yet in the shadows of that triumph, she lost everything she held dear. A princess, a wife, a daughter of Israel's throne, her name should have echoed through history. Instead, it fades into silence. How could the woman who protected David, who risked her life while others cowered, be left abandoned, isolated, and forgotten? What unfolded in the corridors of Saul's palace, behind closed doors and locked chambers, that turned her courage into heartbreak? Why did fate reward the man she loved with glory, while she was left to endure a life shaped by loss, betrayal, and exile within her own home? Most of us have only glimpsed her story in fragments, brief mentions in scripture that hint at loyalty, sacrifice, and tragedy, but the full picture has remained hidden for centuries. In the next hour, we will step into her world. The palace intrigues, the perilous choices, the moments of bravery no one recorded, and the decisions that silently condemned her to obscurity. Prepare to uncover the truth about Michal, a woman whose devotion shaped a king, yet whose life became a quiet testament to courage, consequence, and the price of love in a kingdom of shifting power. Michal's story is not just a tale from centuries ago, it is a mirror that reflects struggles we still face today. Her life speaks of loyalty tested, love given at great personal cost, and the silent suffering that often goes unseen. Imagine giving your heart, your courage, your very safety to someone you believe in completely, only to watch them rise to glory while you are left to carry the shadows of your sacrifice alone. That is the life Michal endured. She chose to protect David, to place herself in harm's way, and yet the world remembered only the man who became king. Her experience uncovers a truth we rarely acknowledge. Sometimes the timing of our devotion matters as much as the devotion itself. To love the right person at the wrong moment can bring admiration in secrecy, but loss in reality. Michal's devotion was perfect in courage, yet tragically imperfect in circumstance. There is also a lesson in the hidden pain behind public triumph. David's victories were celebrated by all, his name sung across Israel, yet the cost of those victories, borne silently by Michal, remained invisible. Her suffering was real, yet it left no trace in the public eye. She reminds us that history often overlooks the quiet sacrifices that shape destinies, that the applause of the world does not account for every cost. And perhaps most importantly, her story reveals the profound truth that God sees what others do not. In the spaces between the accolades and the triumphs, in the choices unseen and unrecorded, God recognizes the courage, the loyalty, and the heartache. Michal's life is testimony to that divine vision. Her story is more than history. It is a warning about misplaced trust, a reflection of human vulnerability, and a message that some of the greatest acts of devotion come with consequences that are rarely acknowledged. As we explore her life, we will discover a woman who loved fiercely, acted boldly, and paid a price that history has quietly ignored. And in her journey, we will find echoes of our own struggles, moments when love, loyalty, and courage collide with circumstances beyond our control. To understand Michal's life, we must step into the heart of Israel's first monarchy, into a world of stone fortresses and winding streets, where every decision carried weighty consequences and danger often hid behind gilded walls. Her home was Saul's palace in Gibeah, perched atop a hill overlooking a land still finding its identity. From this vantage point, one could see the rolling hills where shepherds tended their flocks, the valleys where soldiers marched, and the borderlands where the Philistines loomed as a constant, unrelenting threat. Life in early monarchy Israel was far from peaceful. Power was fragile, and loyalty was a currency as valuable as gold. Saul, Israel's first king, ruled with a mixture of divine mandate and personal insecurity. He was a man of extraordinary beginnings, chosen by God to lead the nation. Yet his reign was marred by paranoia, jealousy, and an ever-present fear that his throne might be threatened. Every whisper, every glance, every new achievement by a rising warrior stoked flames of suspicion within the royal house. Into this volatile world came Michal, Saul's daughter. She was young, intelligent, and capable, yet often overlooked in a palace where political alliances outweighed personal desires. Her beauty and wit were not simply admired, they were tools in a world where women of the royal family were bound by duty, where arranged marriages served as instruments of political strategy, and where the ambitions of fathers and kings often eclipsed their children's happiness. In this environment, Michal had to navigate loyalty to her father, survival within the palace, and the stirrings of her own heart. And then there was David, a young man from Bethlehem, a shepherd boy chosen by God for a destiny few could imagine. His rise was meteoric and unexpected, a series of victories and acts of courage that captured the imagination of the people and, simultaneously, the suspicion of Saul. David moved with divine favor, yet, in the eyes of the palace, he was a threat, a brilliant spark in a court tense with fear and ambition. In the midst of these forces, Michal's life began to intersect with David's. She watched him from afar, first as an observer, then as a confidant, and finally as someone willing to act in ways that could alter both their destinies. The instability of the palace, the paranoia of her father, the relentless pressure from enemies at the borders, all these forces created a tension that wrapped around every decision she made, every word she spoke, every glance she exchanged with the man she loved. In this palace, danger was a constant companion. Choices carried consequences measured not in days, but in years. Loyalties shifted like the wind over the hills, and the smallest misstep could ignite events that would change lives forever. For Michal, every moment was a delicate balancing act between fear and courage, between duty and love, between survival and sacrifice. And as the story unfolds, we will see how these pressures, the geography, the politics, the cultural expectations, and the personal ambitions of kings and warriors formed the stage upon which Michal's bravery would be tested, and upon which the cost of loyalty would be measured in full. Before Michal became a name etched in the stories of kings and kingdoms, before her life was entangled with David's rise, she was a child of stone corridors and whispered secrets. Saul's palace in Gibeah was a world unto itself, walls thick with history, rooms heavy with the weight of political decisions, and every corner alive with lessons in power and survival. Michal grew up observing, learning, and quietly understanding the currents of influence that flowed through the court. Her father, Saul, was a king both revered and feared, whose moods shifted like the winds over the Judean hills. Every smile could hide suspicion, every compliment could conceal expectation. As his daughter, Michal bore the invisible burden of responsibility from a young age. She was expected to be poised, obedient, and, above all, loyal not only to her family, but to the fragile political alliances that kept the kingdom intact. Her sister, Merab, was often praised for her beauty and elegance, celebrated in courtly circles and envied by other young women. Michal, by contrast, was overlooked at times, her intelligence and perceptiveness unacknowledged by many, yet never wasted. In the quiet spaces between her father's commands and her sister's public accolades, Michal observed patterns, understood motives, and formed judgments that would later guide her actions when the stakes became life and death. The culture of royal families in early Israel was one of duty over desire. Marriages were tools of alliance, promises of peace, and instruments to secure loyalty. Children born into this world inherited not only their father's name, but also the expectations of a kingdom, the ambitions of rivals, and the weight of a nation's eyes. Michal understood this from an early age, and though she moved gracefully through her role, a quiet awareness lingered. Her life would never belong solely to herself. It was during this time that she first heard of David, the young warrior, whose courage in battle and devotion to God set him apart. Stories of his exploits traveled swiftly through the palace halls. How he defended the flocks of Bethlehem, how he stood against the Philistines when even seasoned soldiers faltered, and how the Lord's favor seemed to follow him with an almost unnatural consistency. Michal listened, fascinated not merely by his victories, but by the spirit with which he carried them. Her admiration began subtly, an echo of fascination in the corner of her mind. David was brave, clever, and devoted. More than that, he moved in ways that seemed guided by something beyond the ordinary, a destiny that Michal could sense but not yet comprehend. Hope, fragile yet persistent, began to take root. Hope that in a world bound by duty and expectation, there might exist a connection born of courage, respect, and understanding. And in these first impressions, Michal's heart unknowingly prepared itself for choices that would test every ounce of bravery, wisdom, and resilience she possessed. A young princess in a palace of schemes, she was about to find that admiration could become action, fascination could become risk, and hope could demand a price far greater than she ever imagined. Little did she know, the boy from Bethlehem, whose name had begun to weave itself into the fabric of her daily thoughts, would soon arrive at the crossroads of her life, and when he did, the course of her destiny and the fate of a nation would be forever altered. As Michal grew, so too did her heart. Within the polished halls of Saul's palace, where strategy often outweighed affection, her thoughts increasingly lingered on David, the young warrior whose courage had begun to shine like a beacon amidst the shadows of Gibeah. She watched him not only as the man who fought with unmatched skill, but as someone whose faith and loyalty carried the weight of destiny. Her admiration deepened into something more personal, something that stirred hope within her, a quiet, tender affection she dared not speak aloud in a court alive with suspicion and intrigue. Saul, however, was a king who saw the world through eyes sharpened by fear. Word of Michal's affection reached him, though how it arrived in his ears through court whispers or the cautionary advice of trusted servants matters little to history. What mattered was the reaction. Jealousy, calculation, and a plan that would bind love and danger together in a deadly knot. Saul decided to weaponize his daughter's feelings. He would turn what should have been a private, innocent bond into a trap, a test of courage with life and death stakes. And so, Saul demanded a bride price unlike any other. 100 Philistine foreskins, a brutal task meant to ensure David's demise. It was a plan wrought with cruelty, masked as ceremony, designed to take a man who had shown brilliance and devotion and extinguish him beneath the weight of impossible demand. For David, this was not merely a mission, it was a gauntlet through which his survival, honor, and destiny would all be measured. David, however, possessed more than skill with a sling or sword. He carried the favor of God in every step, every choice, every confrontation. One by one, he met the challenge Saul had devised. Each foreskin returned to the king was a symbol not only of survival, but of rising prominence, of divine protection manifesting where human schemes sought to destroy. David's triumphs only increased his fame, and each success deepened Saul's fear, turning admiration into obsession and calculated suspicion into open hostility. Meanwhile, Michal observed this unfolding with a mixture of awe, fear, and quiet faith. She recognized the pattern of God's hand in David's life, the invisible guidance that seemed to shield him from danger. To her, each success was a testament to divine protection, and each narrow escape was confirmation that what they were living through was part of a greater design. Yet beneath her relief, an unease lingered, a subtle understanding that every victory, no matter how glorious, carries a cost. The palace grew tense with anticipation. Conversations hushed as David's reputation expanded. Eyes that once doubted now whispered his name with reverence. Saul's palace, once a place of calculated authority, was slowly becoming a theater of fear, admiration, and quiet rebellion. And in the midst of it, Michal's heart beat with hope for a future that might never fully belong to her. And yet, a quiet shadow lingered. For all of David's victories, for all of God's protection, the events unfolding would not leave Michal untouched. The triumph that seemed to promise joy would, in time, demand a price she had not yet imagined, a price that would test the limits of her loyalty, courage, and the strength of a heart willing to love against impossible odds. History will remember David's victories, but it will almost forget the woman whose affection, bravery, and faith made them possible. And as the story continues, we will see how her devotion, pure and fearless, sets the stage for choices that will alter the trajectory of both their lives forever. Night had fallen over Gibeah, and Saul's palace lay under the quiet veil of darkness. But within those walls, a storm was brewing. The corridors, usually silent and orderly, were alive with hushed footsteps and whispered commands. Soldiers moved like shadows along the stone floors, their swords glinting faintly in the torchlight. Each step carried the weight of imminent danger, each murmur a signal of Saul's growing fury. Michal, awake in her chambers, sensed the tension before she even understood it. Through the thin walls, she heard the muffled voices of her father's men, the urgent tone in their speech, the command that chilled her to the bone. Saul had given his orders. David must be found, and this time there would be no escape. Her heart raced. Every beat felt like a drum warning of approaching doom. She knew that if David were discovered, he would face certain death at the hands of her father's soldiers. And yet, standing at that precarious precipice, she understood something deeper. She had the power to alter the course of events, but only if she acted. Moving silently through the shadows of her room, Michal approached the door, listening intently. Every word she overheard confirmed her fears. The soldiers were coming for him. Their plans were violent, precise, unyielding. And in that instant, she made a choice that would define her life. She would save David. There was no hesitation. Risking the wrath of a king, risking her own life, Michal acted with courage that few could comprehend. She warned David of the danger, her words a lifeline in the darkness, her voice steady though her heart threatened to betray her fear. Every second counted, every pause could mean failure. Then came the moment of daring. She helped him escape through a window, a feat that required both ingenuity and speed. But the danger did not end there. To cover their tracks, she used the household idol, one of the teraphim, small figures often kept in homes for ritual purposes, as a decoy. She laid the figure in David's bed, wrapping it in blankets to mimic a sleeping form, and crafted a lie so convincing that Saul's men would be deceived. This was no small act of cunning. It was a direct confrontation with authority, a deliberate choice to place loyalty to love above loyalty to her father. The emotional cost was immense. Michal knew the consequences: anger, punishment, perhaps exile or worse. Yet in that moment, she understood that protecting David was worth every risk. And so, as David slipped through the darkness, guided by her courage, Michal remained behind. Her heart heavy with the knowledge that her greatest act of devotion would become the first chapter of her suffering. She had acted with love, but in doing so, she had marked herself for hardship, setting in motion a series of events that would test her spirit, her faith, and her very survival. Turning point number 1. Michal's loyalty, her bravery, and her love had saved a life destined for greatness. But it had also sealed her path into a shadowed struggle, one that history would remember only in fleeting mentions, yet one that would shape her forever. David vanished into the night, slipping through the hills and valleys that would one day witness his rise to kingship. Behind him, Michal remained, standing alone within the cold, silent walls of Saul's palace. The echo of her own footsteps seemed louder than the voices of the court, and in that silence she felt the first true weight of abandonment. No word followed David's flight, no message, no reassurance, no acknowledgement of the danger she had risked her life to avert. The scriptures are quiet here, almost painfully so. They make no record of David turning back to Michal, no hint of concern or longing in his heart. History itself seems to breathe around her loss, leaving the reader and Michal alone with the bitter truth. Her devotion had been given without promise of return. The silence cuts deeper than any blade. To act with bravery is one thing. To act with love and have it remain unseen, unacknowledged, is another entirely. Michal's loyalty, her courage, her calculated risk to protect the man she admired, now stands in stark contrast to the absence of recognition. Her heart had opened fully, and yet the man she saved carried on without even the faintest gesture of gratitude, and Saul's reaction was immediate and severe. Where David's absence removed one source of tension, it amplified another. Michal's status, once buffered by her position as the king's daughter, now eroded under her father's wrath. Protection that had once been afforded by her lineage was withdrawn. Her place in the court became precarious, her privileges diminished, and her life within the palace walls transformed into a realm of constant vigilance and careful steps. Every movement had to be measured, every word considered, for the king's anger loomed like a shadow over every decision. In those quiet hours, Michal's loyalty became painfully evident. She had given everything to save David, yet received nothing in return. She stood as a living testament to love unreciprocated, bravery unnoticed, and the invisible cost of devotion. Her heart, her mind, and her spirit were left to grapple with the harsh truth. Loyalty in her world was, at this moment, profoundly one-sided. Yet even in this solitude, the story refuses to remain static. Life within the palace was never simple, and forces beyond Michal's control were already shifting. Her father's schemes, David's rising reputation, and the volatile dynamics of the royal household were converging toward an outcome she could not yet anticipate. A change was coming, one that would disrupt everything she thought she knew, challenge every principle she had relied upon, and set her on a path that history would scarcely record, but one that would define her existence. And so, as Michal stood alone, the echoes of her sacrifice hanging heavy in the silent halls, the first hints of her next trials began to emerge unseen, yet unstoppable. Something unexpected was stirring, a force that would once again test her courage, her loyalty, and her very sense of self. In the weeks that followed David's escape, Saul's anger did not diminish, it intensified. To him, Michal's devotion to David was a stain upon the throne, a betrayal within his own household. The king's solution was swift, calculated, and merciless. Michal, once a princess at the center of royal influence, was married off to Paltiel, son of Laish, a move designed not for her happiness, but to sever the bond between her and the rising warrior from Bethlehem. This was politics at its most ruthless. Royal marriages were instruments of strategy, used to consolidate power, remove threats, and secure allegiances. In this case, Michal became a pawn in Saul's plan to remove David's claim from the court, to disrupt any future alliance that might strengthen the man he feared. Her own desires were irrelevant. Her heart, her courage, and her loyalty counted for nothing in the eyes of a king consumed by fear and jealousy. For Michal, the transition was devastating. She entered a life she had not chosen, with a husband she had not loved, under the gaze of a king whose wrath she could not escape. Yet even in this forced marriage, life did not remain simple. Paltiel, gentle and sincere, came to care for her deeply. His love was earnest, quiet, and protective, a stark contrast to the tumultuous loyalty she had shown David. In his presence, Michal may have found moments of peace, but they were fleeting, overshadowed by the loss of autonomy and the knowledge that her heart had already been given elsewhere. It is important to remember the reality of women in this era. Personal agency was nearly non-existent. Michal's fate was shaped by her father, by kings, and by the currents of political ambition swirling around her. Love, choice, and desire were luxuries she could scarcely claim. Her life, once vibrant with the promise of courage and devotion, became a landscape of compromise and silent endurance. Turning point number 2 emerges here with devastating clarity. Michal lost her marriage to a man she did not choose, her identity shaped by circumstance rather than will, and her autonomy stripped away by a father whose fear outweighed his love. Every choice she had made for love or courage now collided with the harsh reality of survival in a world where power dictated destiny. Her heart, once alive with hope and admiration, now learned the weight of duty, fear, and enforced loyalty. And yet, even within the shadow of this forced union, the story of Michal was far from over. Forces beyond her control were gathering once again, converging toward a moment that would demand every ounce of resilience, cunning, and courage she possessed, proving that even in loss, her life was inextricably bound to the unfolding destiny of a kingdom. Meanwhile, beyond the walls of Gibeah, David's path continued to unfold. The boy who had once fled for his life from Saul now rose with unstoppable momentum, anointed first as king of Judah and then over all Israel. His victories multiplied, his fame spread, and with power came the privileges and burdens of a ruler. The man who once inspired admiration in Michal's heart now commanded armies, cities, and alliances, his destiny firmly in motion. With kingship came new marriages, many forged for political advantage rather than affection. David's household expanded, wives and concubines filling his court, each union carefully chosen to strengthen his position and secure loyalty across the nation. Within this ever-growing web of alliances, the memory of Michal, his first wife, lingered, but not for the reasons of the heart. When the time was right, David demanded her return. It was a calculated move. Michal was no longer a partner in love. She was a symbol of legitimacy. Her return would validate David's claim to the throne, solidify his royal lineage, and connect him back to the house of Saul, whose bloodline had once been a source of threat. The very daughter who had risked everything to save him as a young woman was now summoned not by desire, but by political necessity. Paltiel, her husband, felt the weight of this command in his bones. Though he had come to love Michal deeply, his devotion mattered little to the unfolding designs of kings. He followed her weeping, his grief evident to all who watched, a quiet testament to the love that had grown between them despite the forces arrayed against it. Yet even as he clung to her, the reality was inevitable. Michal would be returned to David. His tears would not change the decree, and his love could not alter the course of destiny shaped by ambition and authority. For Michal, the reunion was not a moment of triumph. It was a turning point, steeped in sorrow. She returned to the man she had once loved, yet now stood before him not as an equal partner, but as a political instrument, a living emblem of legitimacy, carefully placed to strengthen the king's rule. Her heart, her courage, and her loyalty had been tested repeatedly, and this return, far from being a restoration, fractured her further. Turning point number 3 is clear. Michal comes back to David not for love, not for partnership, but as a symbol of power. The woman who once risked life and reputation to protect him is now bound to a king whose priorities are political, whose heart may no longer see hers. And so, as she stepped back into David's court, the palace walls that had once been a place of protection now became the stage for a new trial. The reunion, expected by some to heal past wounds, would instead reveal the cost of loyalty, the weight of political necessity, and the deepening fractures of a heart already marked by sacrifice. The story does not pause here. The events about to unfold will test Michal in ways even her previous trials could not prepare her for, exposing the painful truth that love and power rarely coexist without conflict, and that sometimes returning home can feel far more like exile than restoration. Years had passed since Michal had risked everything to save David. Years since she had been torn from Paltiel. Years of quiet endurance within the walls of David's palace. Yet nothing could have prepared her for the moment when the king's triumph collided with her private pain. The Ark of the Covenant was being brought to Jerusalem, a procession filled with celebration, music, and the fervor of a nation rejoicing in God's presence. David led the way, not with quiet dignity, but with abandon, dancing, leaping, and exulting before the Lord with a joy that shook the very streets. His worship was prophetic, intense, unrestrained, a public display of devotion meant to honor God and inspire the people. Michal watched from a palace window, her eyes fixed on the man she had once loved, the man who had returned her life as a symbol of legitimacy rather than love. She saw him celebrated, adored, the center of the nation's admiration, and her heart tightened. What she witnessed was not merely exuberance, it was a mirror reflecting everything she had sacrificed, every risk she had taken, every moment of loyalty ignored or misunderstood. In her mind, the dancing king seemed reckless, almost irreverent, a mockery of royal dignity. But the truth ran deeper. Her anger was not simply toward the display, but toward the man before her, the man who had once inspired her love and faith, yet returned her devotion with neglect and political maneuvering. The Hebrew text hints at layers often missed. Michal's words carry the weight of years of unspoken betrayal, a lifetime of loyalty that went unseen, a courage that was quietly abandoned. When David saw her, their confrontation erupted not as a simple marital disagreement, but as a collision of wounds, histories, and unmet expectations. She accused, he defended. She spoke from the pain of abandonment, he responded from the triumph of victory. Both communicated from places of hurt, neither fully understanding the other's heart, yet each truth was real and profound. The fracture became permanent. Where once courage and love had intersected, now resentment and misunderstanding held sway. Michal's loyalty, once a bridge to connection, had become a chasm separating them. Her sacrifices unacknowledged, her suffering unseen by the man at the center of her devotion. And here lies a truth often overlooked. The Hebrew wording preserves the subtle but searing detail that Michal's anger was not born in the moment of dancing alone. It was the eruption of years of unspoken pain, a testimony to the invisible cost of unwavering loyalty, the silent burdens borne by those whose hearts are given fully, yet whose devotion remains unreciprocated. In that moment, the love that had once defined her life, the bravery that had saved a king, and the loyalty that had guided every choice all converged into a final, irrevocable break. Michal and David stood face to face, yet their hearts were divided, a separation not merely of circumstance, but of soul. As the story of Michal unfolds, one truth becomes impossible to ignore, a revelation that casts every choice, every sacrifice, and every moment of suffering into sharp relief. Michal lost everything, not because of her love for David, not because she failed in courage, not because she lacked devotion, but because she stood at the impossible intersection of a declining kingdom and a rising one. Saul's reign was crumbling, consumed by fear, jealousy, and the relentless pressure of enemies both within and without. David, once a young shepherd and fugitive, was ascending with divine favor, gathering the threads of destiny that would weave him into the kingship of Israel. Michal's life became the hinge between these two forces, the human fulcrum upon which the fate of a nation balanced. And such positions, however brave, are rarely without cost. Her personal desires, her loyalty, and even her heroic acts were swept aside by the larger currents of history. She became a symbol of legitimacy, of alliance, of transition. Symbols, as we see again and again, rarely survive intact. They are meant to be moved, reshaped, and often discarded, their humanity invisible beneath the weight of meaning imposed by others. Her suffering, then, was not punishment, nor was it a reflection of weakness. It was the price of being caught in a divine shift, a living witness to the collision of human ambition and God's unfolding plan. Every betrayal, every forced marriage, every misunderstood gesture, all of it was a consequence of a world in flux, of a destiny far greater than any individual heart, no matter how courageous or loyal. In Michal's life, we see a truth that is both tragic and profound. Loyalty and love are not always rewarded. Courage does not guarantee recognition, and sacrifice may go unseen, but the hand of God moves through all, shaping the course of history, even when human hearts bear the scars. This is the peak of her story, the moment where all the courage, devotion, and suffering converge into understanding. Michal was a woman whose life intersected with destiny itself. And in that intersection, she became a symbol of transition, a quiet reminder that even the unseen and uncelebrated play vital roles in the unfolding of God's plan. Michal's story leaves us with quiet truths, ones that do not require grand declarations or judgments, but simply reflection. She shows us that God sees sacrifices that others forget, every act of courage, every choice made from love or loyalty, every hidden moment of bravery. It is never truly unseen. Even when human eyes fail to acknowledge devotion, God's sight encompasses every heartbeat, every risk, every tear. Her life also reminds us that love does not always guarantee reward. Sometimes the heart that gives fully, faithfully, and fearlessly receives little in return, yet that does not diminish the value of what was given. The courage to love is, in itself, a profound strength. Being faithful in a broken environment, in circumstances shaped by fear, ambition, or injustice, can break even the strongest hearts. Michal's endurance, her quiet suffering, and her unwavering loyalty reveal the human cost of standing steadfast in a world that often misunderstands and overlooks devotion. And yet, there is solace in her story. Unseen pain is still seen by God. Her loyalty, her courage, her heartbreak, though ignored by those around her, was never ignored by the one who orchestrates history, who values the faithful, and who remembers the hidden acts of love. Michal's life does not end with triumph in the eyes of men, but it speaks to us across the centuries that courage, sacrifice, and faithfulness have weight, even when the world does not notice, and that God honors the hearts that remain steadfast, even in silence. Michal's story, though centuries old, carries a weight that resonates even today. It is a story of courage hidden in silence, of loyalty tested beyond measure, and of love and devotion that went unseen by the world, but never by God. Her life reminds us that history is filled with those whose sacrifices shape destinies, even when recognition never comes. She stands as a quiet testament to the power and cost of unwavering faith, and to the human heart's capacity to endure trials it never sought. If stories like this move you, the next episode is already waiting for you. Choose any video on the screen, and I'll meet you there. Together, we will uncover more hidden narratives, explore more lives that history almost forgot, and discover the lessons that continue to speak across generations. Your journey with the hidden stories of the Bible does not end here. Michal's voice may have been quiet in the annals of history, but through these stories, it speaks to us still.